Jake Morrison stood in the main hall of the starship Starlight, looking around at the strangest group of beings he had ever seen. The human Marine from Colorado was used to tough situations, but this was different. He was surrounded by aliens from 12 different worlds, each one more strange than the last. Some of the aliens were twice his height. Others had skin that looked like metal armor. A few had extra arms or legs or eyes in places that made no sense. Jake tried not to stare, but it was hard. He had seen pictures and videos during his training, but being here in person was something else entirely. The ship was huge, bigger than any building Jake had ever been inside. It served as a meeting place for the galaxy's first military exchange program. Each species had sent their best warriors to learn from each other. At least, that was the idea. So far, most of the aliens seemed more interested in showing off than learning anything. Jake felt small among these creatures. He was just a regular human, 5 feet 10 inches tall, with brown hair and brown eyes. Nothing special about him except for his military training. Back on Earth, he had been considered a good soldier. Here, he wondered if he was just a curiosity. The Krolix delegation caught his attention immediately. They were impossible to ignore. 7 feet tall with green and brown scales that covered their entire bodies, they looked like giant lizards walking on 2 legs. Their leader, War Commander Thextar, had red markings on his face that seemed to glow under the ship's lights. When he spoke, his voice was like gravel in a blender. "The humans send us this," Thextar said loud enough for everyone to hear. He gestured at Jake with one clawed hand. "This soft creature represents Earth's military might?" Jake had dealt with bullies before. He knew the best response was usually to stay calm and not take the bait. "I'm just here to learn and share what I can," he said politely. This seemed to make Thextar even more angry. Learn? What could a species of children possibly teach the Krolix? "We have conquered 17 star systems through superior combat skill. We are the finest warriors in the galaxy." Other aliens in the room began to back away. Jake noticed that even the tall, graceful Etherians were putting distance between themselves and the Krolix. The air seemed to grow thick with tension that Jake did not fully understand. "I'm sure you're very skilled," Jake said, trying to keep things friendly. "We humans have a lot to learn from experienced fighters like yourselves." Thextar's crust, a row of spikes along the top of his head, began to rise. This was apparently a bad sign, because several aliens made worried sounds. "You mock us with false humility," Thextar hissed. "Tell me, human, do your people engage in combat training?" Jake brightened up. Finally, something he could talk about confidently. "Oh, sure, all the time. We train every day. Actually, sparring, drills, exercises, you name it. Got to stay sharp, you know." The room went completely silent. Jake looked around, confused by the sudden change in atmosphere. Had he said something wrong? Thextar's eyes, which were yellow with vertical pupils like a snake's, narrowed to thin slits. "You engage in combat for practice? For entertainment?" "Well, I wouldn't call it entertainment exactly," Jake said, still not understanding why everyone looked so serious suddenly. "But yeah, we spar pretty much every day. It's important to keep your skills up. We run drills, practice techniques, fight in different scenarios. Standard military training." The Krolix commander's claws, which had been hidden, suddenly extended from his fingers. They were 6 inches long and looked razor sharp. Among the Krolix, combat is sacred. It is life or death. It is honor itself. We do not play games with fighting. Jake was starting to get the feeling that he had stepped into something bigger than he realized. "I understand that different cultures have different approaches to training," he said carefully. "Training?" Thextar's voice rose to a roar. "You think combat is training?" You think the warrior's art is something to practice casually. I mean, how else do you get better at it? Jake asked, genuinely confused. You can't just fight real battles and hope for the best. You need to practice your techniques, work on your fitness, learn from your mistakes. The alien scales began to change color, shifting from green to a darker, more menacing shade. Then you will not refuse when I challenge you to Hethmer, the sacred duel of the Krolix. We fight until one cannot continue. Your species' honor depends on your answer. Jake felt a moment of confusion. A duel? That seemed extreme. But then he thought about it and realized this might be exactly what he was here for. Cultural exchange, learning different fighting styles, making friends with alien warriors. A friendly match? Jake asked, his face lighting up with genuine enthusiasm. That sounds great. I'd love to see how you guys fight. When do we start? The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several aliens made sounds that might have been gasps or screams. Others began backing away even further. A few of the smaller species actually left the room entirely. Vexstar stared at Jake with an expression that was hard to read. You accept? Sure, Jake said, warming to the idea. It'll be fun. I've never sparred with a Krolix before. Will this be hand-to-hand combat, or do you use weapons? Fun, Vexstar repeated slowly, as if the word was foreign to him. Yeah, I love a good match, Jake continued, oblivious to the horror spreading across the faces of the other aliens. I was starting to worry this whole trip would be nothing but talking and ceremonies. Don't get me wrong, the diplomatic stuff is important, but I was hoping to get some actual training in. The Krolix commander's crest was now fully extended, making him look even more intimidating. The Hethmer is tomorrow at sunset. The entire diplomatic corps will witness your defeat. Jake grinned and extended his hand for a handshake. Looking forward to it. Should I bring anything special, or just show up ready to go? Vexstar stared at the offered hand, but did not take it. You will need nothing but your courage, human. Though I doubt you have enough of that. We'll see, Jake said, cheerfully. This is going to be great. Thanks for the opportunity. As the aliens began to disperse, many of them shooting worried glances at Jake, the human marine felt a surge of excitement. Finally, something interesting was going to happen on this trip. He had been looking forward to learning new fighting techniques, and it looked like he was going to get that chance sooner than expected. He had no idea that he had just agreed to a fight to the death. Jake woke up to the sound of someone knocking on his door. He checked his watch and saw it was still early morning. The knocking continued, urgent and fast. Coming, he called out, rolling out of bed and grabbing a shirt. He opened the door to find 3 aliens standing in the hallway, all looking extremely worried. The first was Ambassador Velinari, one of the Etherians. She was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. Her voice made musical sounds when she spoke. Lieutenant Morrison, we must speak with you immediately. Sure. Come on in, Jake said, stepping aside. What's going on? The other 2 aliens followed Velinari into his quarters. One was Dr. Zefti, a scientist from the Healers Guild. The third was someone Jake had not met before, a short, furry creature with large eyes. Lieutenant Morrison, Velinari began, her voice crystals trembling. Do you understand what you agreed to yesterday? Jake sat down on his bed and began putting on his boots. A sparring match with Vexstar, right? Should be interesting. No, Dr. Zefti said, all 4 of his arms moving in what Jake had learned was a sign of extreme distress. Not sparring. Hethmer, sacred combat, ritual duel. Okay, Jake said slowly. What's the difference? The 3 aliens exchanged glances. Velinari spoke first. The Hethmer is not practice. It is not training. It is a fight to the death. Jake paused with one boot half on. Come again? Death, Lieutenant Morrison? The combat continues until one fighter cannot continue. This means death or permanent injury that ends the fight. That seems a bit extreme for a friendly match, Jake said, but he was starting to understand why everyone had looked so worried yesterday. The furry alien, who introduced himself as Historian Piptek, began pulling up information on a small device. The last 3 species to face the Krolix in Hethmar are now extinct. The Krolix do not lose these duels. Jake finished putting on his boots and stood up. Well, that's concerning. But I gave my word, so I guess we're doing this. Dr. Zefti made a sound like a tea kettle whistling. You do not understand. The Krolix have modified their bodies for combat over thousands of years. They are not natural anymore. They are living weapons. How so? Jake asked, genuinely curious. Velinari began listing facts. Their bones are 3 times denser than human bones. Their muscles have been enhanced to provide strength far beyond what their size suggests. Their reflexes are faster than any natural creature. Their claws can cut through metal. And, Dr. Zefti added, their skin produces a toxin when they are threatened. This toxin can paralyze enemies or cause severe pain. Jake absorbed this information while doing his morning stretches. So he's basically a super soldier with poisonous skin and metal-cutting claws. Yes, all 3 aliens said at once. Well, that's definitely going to make things interesting, Jake said, dropping down to do push-ups. The aliens stared at him. Lieutenant Morrison, Velinari said carefully, you are exercising. Why are you exercising? It's morning, Jake said between push-ups. I always exercise in the morning. Got to stay in shape. But you are about to fight for your life, Piptek squeaked. Should you not be afraid? Should you not be planning? Should you not be trying to escape? Jake paused his workout. Afraid? Of what exactly? Of death, Dr. Zefti exclaimed. Of being killed by a creature that has never lost a fight. Oh, Jake said, resuming his push-ups. Well, I've been in situations where people were trying to kill me before. It's not fun, but you deal with it. Before the aliens could respond, the door chimed again. This time it was Dr. Helen Carter, the human scientist assigned to the diplomatic mission. She came in carrying a tablet and looking very serious. Jake, she said without preamble, I've been running scans and analysis all night. We need to talk about what you're up against. Good morning to you too, Helen, Jake said, switching to sit-ups. What did you find? The Krolix are not just tough. They're practically a different species than they were originally. Look at this. She showed him the tablet screen, which displayed a comparison between Jake's biology and Dextar's. His muscle density is 3 times human normal, Helen continued. His bone structure is reinforced with metallic compounds. His reaction time is 40% faster than the best human athletes. His cardiovascular system is enhanced to provide oxygen more efficiently. Interesting, Jake said, genuinely fascinated. So he's like a person who's been upgraded. Exactly. And that's not all. The toxin Dr. Zefti mentioned? It's not just poisonous. It's a complex chemical compound that attacks the nervous system. One scratch from his claws while he's in combat mode, and you'll be paralyzed within seconds. Jake finished his sit-ups and moved on to jumping jacks. Good to know. Anything else? Helen stared at him. Jake, are you listening to me? This creature is designed to kill. He has advantages you can't possibly overcome. Everyone keeps telling me that, Jake said. But here's the thing. I've never met anyone who is unbeatable. Everyone has weaknesses. What? Weaknesses could the Krolix possibly have? Velinari asked. Jake paused his workout to think. Well, for starters, all that muscle mass and heavy bones means he's probably not as fast as he could be. Enhanced reflexes are great, but they only help if you're in the right position to use them. And if he's been winning fights easily for his whole life, he might not be used to adapting when things don't go his way. The aliens exchanged glances again. You have fought enhanced opponents before? Pip-Tech asked. Not exactly enhanced, but I've fought people who were bigger, stronger, and faster than me. The trick is not to fight their fight. You fight your own fight. At that moment, Captain Lisa Hayes entered the room. She looked tired and stressed. Jake, I've been up all night trying to find a way out of this. The Krolloks have refused all diplomatic solutions. According to galactic law, if you back down from an accepted HFY, it brings dishonor to your entire species. What does that mean exactly? Jake asked. It means Earth could be blacklisted from the galactic community. No trade, no alliances, no protection. We'd be marked as a species of cowards. Jake stopped exercising and looked serious for the first time. So if I don't fight, Earth suffers. That's right. And if you lose ... double quotes, Captain Hayes trailed off. If I lose, I'm dead, and Earth still looks weak, Jake finished. So really, winning is the only good option. Jake, Helen said softly, the odds are completely against you. No one expects you to win. Even trying is more than most species would do. Jake looked around the room at all the worried faces. Let me ask you something. Do you think I should give up before even trying? No, Velinari said immediately. But we think you should understand the reality of the situation. I do understand, Jake said. I'm going to fight a 7-foot-tall, poisonous lizard man who's never lost a fight and has been engineered to kill people like me. Yes, Dr. Zefti said sadly. Jake grinned. Should be fun. The room fell silent except for the sound of Jake's breathing returning to normal after his workout. Finally, Captain Hayes spoke. Jake, I have to ask, do you have any idea what you're getting into? Jake considered the question seriously. Ma'am, I've been shot at by people with actual guns. I've fought in places where the environment was trying to kill me before the enemy even got involved. I've sparred with guys who outweighed me by 100 pounds and had more training than I did. He paused, looking thoughtful. But here's the thing. I've never lost a fight I was allowed to finish. And I've never backed down from a challenge when it mattered. This is not a challenge, Velinari said quietly. This is almost certainly death. Maybe, Jake said, but maybe not. Guess we'll find out tonight. As the group prepared to leave, Jake called out, Hey, do you know if there are any rules about what I can wear or bring to this thing? Standard combat attire only, Captain Hayes replied. No weapons, no armor, no enhancements. Perfect, Jake said. Just the way I like it. After everyone left, Jake continued his morning routine. He had a feeling it was going to be a very long day. The cargo bay had been completely transformed. What was usually a storage area for supplies and equipment was now an arena. The aliens had moved all the cargo containers to create a large open space in the center. Around the edges, they had set up seating areas for the representatives from all 12 species. Jake entered the makeshift arena wearing his standard Marine combat uniform, digital camouflage pants, a brown t-shirt, and his regular combat boots. He carried nothing else. The rules of HFY were simple. No weapons, no armor, no artificial enhancements. Just 2 fighters, and whatever skills they brought with them. The size of the crowd surprised him. It seemed like everyone on the ship had come to watch. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled the seating areas, talking in hushed voices in dozens of different languages. Jake could feel their eyes on him as he walked to the center of the arena. On the opposite side of the bay, the Krolloks delegation was engaged in some kind of ceremony. Dextar stood in the center, while the other Krolix warriors chanted in their harsh, growling language. The war commander's scales had changed color again, now a deep red and black pattern that made him look even more dangerous. Jake took the opportunity to do some light stretching. He had learned long ago that staying loose and limber was important before any physical activity. As he stretched his arms and legs, he noticed that the aliens were staring at him with what looked like amazement. "Is the human praying?" he heard one of them whisper. "No, I think he is performing a ritual," another replied. Jake almost laughed. If they thought stretching was a ritual, they were going to be very confused by what came next. The size difference between the two fighters was immediately obvious to everyone in the room. Dextar stood nearly 7 feet tall, his broad shoulders and thick limbs making him look like a walking tank. His claws had been extended to their full length, gleaming under the artificial lights like polished knives. Jake, by comparison, looked almost fragile. He was of average height and build for a human, which made him seem tiny next to the alien warrior. Several of the watching aliens made sounds that might have been pity or concern. "Behold," Dextar announced, his voice carrying easily across the large room, "the frail human who thinks combat is a game. I will make his death quick, as befits a deluded child." The Krolix delegation cheered at this declaration. Some of the other aliens looked uncomfortable, but none of them protested. This was Hefner, and it followed ancient laws that even the most civilized species respected. Jake finished his stretching and began doing a few warm-up exercises. He dropped down and did 20 quick push-ups, then jumped up and did some jumping. "Jax," the aliens watched this with growing confusion. "What is he doing?" Ambassador Velinari asked Dr. Carter. "He's warming up," Helen replied. "It's what human athletes do before physical activity. It helps prevent injury." "But surely he realizes that injury is the least of his concerns," Velinari said. Jake overheard this conversation and called out, "Thanks for the concern, but I don't want to pull a muscle in the middle of a fight. That would be embarrassing." The casual tone of his voice sent a ripple of murmurs through the crowd. Here was a human about to face almost certain death, and he was worried about embarrassment. Dextar had finished his ceremonial preparations and was now studying Jake with predatory intensity. "You are smaller than I expected, human. This will be over quickly." "We'll see," Jake replied, bouncing lightly on his toes. "You're pretty big. Must be tough to stay fast when you're carrying all that muscle." The comment clearly irritated the Krolix warrior. "You dare suggest that size is a weakness? My people have perfected the art of combat over millennia. We have made ourselves into the ultimate fighting machines." "Ultimate is a pretty strong word," Jake said conversationally. "I mean, if you were truly ultimate, you probably wouldn't need to fight at all. Everyone would just surrender." The watching aliens were amazed by this exchange. The human was actually taunting the Krolix war commander, seemingly oblivious to the fact that he was about to die. Ambassador Velinari approached Jake one final time. "Lieutenant Morrison, there is no shame in yielding before the combat begins. Your species is young in the galaxy. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when humans have evolved further." "I appreciate the thought," Jake interrupted gently, "but I gave my word. Besides, this should be educational." "Educational?" Velinari's voice crystals rang with disbelief. "Sure. I've never fought anyone quite like him before. Should be interesting to see how those enhancements work in practice." The referee for the combat was a hive speaker, a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms and multifaceted eyes. It had been chosen because the hive speakers were known for their neutrality and their ability to observe multiple things at once. The hive speaker raised all 4 arms for attention. "The Hefner will begin when both warriors signal their readiness. Combat will continue until one fighter cannot continue or chooses death over dishonor. The formal words sent a chill through the watching crowd. This was really happening. They were about to witness either a miracle or a massacre. Dextar dropped into a combat stance that Jake had never seen before. The alien's body seemed to flow, like liquid, distributing his weight perfectly, while keeping his claws ready to strike from multiple angles. His enhanced muscles coiled like springs, ready to unleash devastating power. "I am ready to claim victory for the Krolix Empire," Dextar declared. Jake took a fighting stance that looked almost casual compared to the alien's dramatic pose. His feet were shoulder-width apart, his hands raised but relaxed, his body balanced, and ready to move in any direction. "Yeah, let's do this," Jake said with a grin. The contrast between the two fighters was striking. Dextar looked like a coiled predator, every line of his body speaking of violence and death. Jake looked like he was getting ready for a friendly sparring match at the gym. The betting had been heavily in favor of the Krolix warrior, but a few aliens were starting to have second thoughts. There was something about the human's confidence that was unsettling. He should have been terrified, but instead he seemed almost relaxed. Dr. Carter leaned over to Captain Hayes. "I've never seen Jake look so calm before a fight." "Is that good or bad?" the captain asked. "I'm not sure. But in all the combat footage I've studied, the most dangerous fighters are the ones who look completely relaxed." The hive speaker looked at both fighters. "Are you prepared to begin?" Dextar's crest rose to its full height. "I am prepared to demonstrate Krolix superiority." Jake rolled his shoulders once and settled into his stance. "Ready when you are." The arena fell completely silent. Hundreds of aliens held their breath, waiting to see how this unprecedented confrontation would begin. The hive speaker's forearms came down simultaneously. Begin! What happened next would be talked about in alien military academies for generations to come. Dextar launched himself across the arena with a speed that seemed impossible for something his size. His powerful legs propelled him forward like a missile, his claws extended toward Jake's throat. The attack was designed to end the fight in the first few seconds. Jake simply wasn't there. The human had moved with a fluid grace that made it look like he had known exactly where the attack was coming from. He sidestepped to his right, let Dextar's momentum carry the alien past him, and then delivered a sharp elbow strike to the warrior's ribs as he went by. The sound of the impact was like a gunshot. Dextar crashed to the floor, rolled, and came up quickly, but his expression had changed completely. Where there had been confidence, now there was confusion. "Impossible," he said. "No being moves that fast without enhancements." Jake was already back in his relaxed fighting stance, looking completely unfazed. "You're pretty quick yourself. This is going to be a good workout." The watching aliens were stunned into silence. They had just witnessed something that should not have been possible. A small, unenhanced human had not only avoided a killing blow from a Krolix warrior, but had counterattacked successfully. In the crowd, Dr. Carter was frantically taking notes. "He didn't just dodge," she whispered to Captain Hayes. "He used Dextar's own momentum against him. That's not luck, that's technique." The fight was just beginning, but already the aliens were starting to realize that their assumptions about humans might have been very, very wrong. Dextar circled Jake like a predator stalking its prey, but something had changed. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by cautious calculation. The first exchange had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. "You got lucky, human," Dextar said, though his voice lacked its earlier certainty. "Luck will not save you twice." Jake kept turning to face the alien, maintaining his relaxed stance. "Wasn't luck. You telegraphed that attack from across the room. Might want to work on your approach." A casual critique clearly irritated the Krolix warrior. With a snarl, he launched into a series of attacks that would have overwhelmed most opponents. His claws moved in complex patterns, each strike designed to kill or maim. The speed was incredible, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to chain together attacks faster than most beings could follow. Jake flowed around the strikes like water flowing around rocks. The human's movements were economical and precise. He never moved more than necessary, never wasted energy on flashy maneuvers. When Nexstar's right claw swept toward his head, Jake ducked just enough to let it pass over him. When the left claw came up in a gutting motion, Jake twisted his body and let it slide harmlessly past. But Jake wasn't just dodging. Every few seconds, he would slip inside the alien's guard and deliver a quick strike to a joint or nerve point. None of the hits looked particularly powerful, but they were adding up. Nexstar was starting to favor his left side, where Jake had hit him repeatedly. Stand still and fight like a warrior. Nexstar roared, frustration evident in his voice. I am fighting, Jake replied, ducking under a horizontal claw swipe. This is how humans fight. We don't stand still and trade blows when we can avoid it. The watching aliens were beginning to understand that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The human wasn't just surviving, he was controlling the pace of the battle. Every movement seemed calculated, every response perfectly timed. Ambassador Valinari leaned forward in her seat. How is this possible? Our scans showed clear human physical limitations. Dr. Carter was taking rapid notes on her tablet. The scans were accurate. Jake isn't stronger or faster than our measurements indicated, but look at his technique. He's not trying to match Nexstar's strengths. He's exploiting the weaknesses that come with those strengths. What weaknesses? Asked Dr. Zefti. Mass and momentum, Helen explained. Nexstar is incredibly strong and fast, but all that muscle mass means he can't change direction as quickly as Jake can. His enhanced reflexes are amazing, but they're tuned for his normal fighting style. Jake is fighting in a way that the enhancements weren't designed to handle. In the arena, the battle continued. Nexstar had realized that his straightforward approach wasn't working and was beginning to adapt. He started using feints and combination attacks, trying to predict where Jake would move next. It worked, partially. One of his claws caught Jake's sleeve and tore through the fabric. The crowd gasped, thinking they were about to see first blood, but Jake had twisted away at the last second. The claw had only caught cloth. First blood to me, Nexstar said, holding up the torn fabric on his claw. That's my shirt, not my blood, Jake pointed out, looking at the tear in his sleeve. Though I appreciate you giving me more freedom of movement. The human's calm response was starting to unnerve the Krolix warrior. Nothing seemed to shake the man's confidence. Nexstar had faced opponents who were afraid, opponents who were angry, opponents who were desperate. He had never faced an opponent who seemed to be genuinely enjoying the fight. You fight like a coward, Nexstar said, trying to provoke an emotional response. Always running, never engaging directly. I'm not running, Jake replied, sidestepping another attack. I'm practicing evasion drills. We do this every Tuesday back home. The comment hit the alien delegation like a physical blow. Tuesday drills? The human was treating this sacred combat like a routine training exercise. Nexstar's attacks became more desperate. He began using his toxic skin secretions, causing his scales to glisten with poison. One scratch from him now would paralyze Jake within seconds. Jake noticed the change immediately. Oh, that's new. Poison skin? That's actually pretty clever. Makes grappling a really bad idea. Finally, you show some fear, Nexstar said with satisfaction. Not fear, just tactical adjustment. Jake corrected. Now, I know not to grab you. Good thing I wasn't planning on wrestling anyway. The alien's frustration was becoming more obvious. His attacks were getting wilder, less controlled. The precision that had made him unbeatable was beginning to break. Down under the stress of facing an opponent who simply would not behave as expected, Jake took advantage of the growing desperation. He began counterattacking more aggressively, landing strikes on pressure points and joints. His hits were still not particularly powerful by alien standards, but they were precisely placed and perfectly timed. "How are you doing this?" X-Star demanded after a particularly effective combination left him stumbling. "You are weak. You are slow. You are soft." "Compared to you, sure," Jake agreed, landing another strike to the alien's knee. "But weak, slow, and soft doesn't mean helpless. It just means I have to be smarter about how I fight." The crowd was starting to murmur. What had begun as a massacre was turning into something else entirely. The human was not just surviving. He was winning. Captain Hayes was staring at the fight with amazement. "I've seen Jake spar before, but never like this. He's operating on a completely different level. It's the pressure," Dr. Carter realized. "He's not holding back. In training, he has to be careful not to hurt his sparring partners. Here, he can use everything he knows." Dexter was breathing heavily now, his enhanced cardiovascular system working hard to supply oxygen to his struggling muscles. The poison secretions were taking their toll on his energy reserves. Jake, meanwhile, looked like he was just getting warmed up. "This is impossible," Dexter gasped. "You are from a soft world. Your gravity is weak. Your climate is gentle. You should be nothing compared to a warrior race like the Krolliks." Jake paused his attack, looking genuinely puzzled. "Gentle? Earth? Are you serious?" "Your planet is a paradise world," Dexter insisted. "Our intelligence reports confirmed it." "I think your intelligence reports might be wrong," Jake said, dodging another increasingly sluggish attack. "My planet has storms that can level cities. We have deserts that can kill you in hours, and frozen wastelands that can kill you in minutes. We have predators that hunt in packs and diseases that can wipe out entire populations." The alien delegation was listening intently now. This was new information. "The ocean tries to drown us. The weather tries to freeze or roast us. The ground tries to shake us to death, and the sky occasionally drops rocks on us from space," Jake continued, still fighting, but now sounding like he was giving a lecture. "And you know what we do about all of that?" Dexter was too tired to answer, but his expression showed he was listening. "We turned it into sports," Jake said, landing another precise strike. "We surf the storms, climb the mountains, explore the deserts, and swim with the predators. We made games out of surviving everything our planet throws at us." The watching aliens were starting to understand. Earth wasn't a paradise world. It was a death world. And humans had not only survived it, they had thrived on it. Every human child grows up learning to deal with dangers that would kill most. "Species," Jake continued. "We don't just survive our environment. We compete with it. We push ourselves to see how much we can handle." Dexter was slowing down noticeably now. His attacks were becoming more predictable, his movements less fluid. The toxins he was secreting were draining his energy faster than his enhanced system could replenish it. "And you want to know the really crazy part?" Jake said, pressing his advantage. "All of that is just what we do for fun. When we actually train for combat, we make it even harder." The human moved in for what looked like a finishing sequence. His strikes came faster now, targeting specific nerve clusters and pressure points. Dexter tried to defend, but his reactions were getting slower. "We practice fighting in conditions that simulate the worst possible scenarios," Jake continued, his strikes becoming more frequent and precise. "Underwater, in the dark, while exhausted, while injured, while outnumbered. We train to fight when everything has gone wrong and we're barely alive." Dexter stumbled backward, his breathing labored. The confident warrior who had entered the sea arena was gone, replaced by a being who was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. "But this," Jake said, gesturing at the arena around them, "this is just a one-on-one fight in a well-lit room with plenty of space to move. This is easy compared to what we trained for." The alien tried one last desperate attack, lunging forward with both claws extended. Jake sidestepped smoothly and used the warrior's momentum to send him crashing into the arena wall. The impact shook the entire cargo bay. Vextar slid down the wall and struggled to get back to his feet. His scales were now a dull gray color, and the toxic secretions had stopped. He was running on fumes. "How?" he gasped. "How is this possible?" Jake walked over and offered his hand to help the fallen warrior up. "Because every day of our lives, we fight something that's trying to kill us. Our planet, our weather, our predators, our diseases, even our own biology. We've been in a life-or-death struggle since the day we. The arena had become eerily quiet. Jake and Vextar stood in the center, both breathing hard, but for very different reasons. The alien warrior was exhausted from the fight and the shock of losing. Jake was catching his breath after what had turned out to be a decent workout. Around them, representatives from 12 different species sat in stunned silence. Many of them were still trying to process what they had just witnessed. The unthinkable had happened. A small, unenhanced human had defeated the galaxy's most feared warrior race. In single combat, Dr. Carter was the first to break the silence. She approached the two fighters with her medical scanner, checking for injuries. "Jake, are you hurt? Any cuts or scratches?" "I'm fine," Jake replied, examining a small tear in his shirt sleeve. "Vextar here has excellent control. He could have done a lot more damage if he'd wanted to." The comment seemed to surprise the Krolix warrior. "Why, oh, you think I was holding back?" "Well, yeah," Jake said matter-of-factly. "You had plenty of opportunities to really hurt me, but you kept pulling your strikes at the last second. That shows discipline." Vextar stared at him. "I was not holding back. I was trying to kill you." "Really?" Jake looked genuinely confused. Maybe I'm faster than I thought." The casual dismissal of what had been a life-or-death struggle sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. Dr. Carter finished her scans and shook her head in amazement. "No injuries on either fighter," she announced, "though Vextar shows signs of severe exhaustion." Ambassador Velinari approached cautiously, her voice crystals chiming with uncertainty. "Lieutenant Morrison, what you have just accomplished should be impossible. Our best military analysts had calculated your chances of survival at less than 3%. 3% seems pretty optimistic," Jake said with a grin. "I mean, if you only looked at the physical differences. What else should we have considered?" Asked Dr. Zefti. Jake thought about this for a moment. "Well, training and experience, for starters. But mostly, you should have considered where we come from." He gestured toward the viewing ports that showed the stars outside. "Every species here comes from a world that was hospitable to life. Your planet supported you, nurtured you, gave you what you needed to survive and grow." The aliens nodded. "This was basic evolutionary biology. Earth is different," Jake continued. "Earth has been trying to kill humans since we first stood upright. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive storms, deadly predators, plague diseases, you name it, our planet has thrown it at us." Captain Hayes had joined the group around the fighters. Jake's not exaggerating. Human history is basically a long list of disasters that should have wiped us out. But they didn't, Jake said. Every time Earth tried to kill us, we adapted. We got tougher, smarter, more resourceful. We learned to work together because we had to. No single human could survive what our planet dished out. Historian Pip Tech was frantically taking notes on his device. "This explains many inconsistencies in our data about human civilization. Your technological development was unusually rapid. We had motivation, Jake laughed. When your environment is constantly trying to murder you, you innovate fast or you die. Vexstar, who had been listening quietly while recovering his strength, finally spoke up. You said your people make gains from survival. Explain this. Jake's eyes lit up. Oh, that's the best part. After we figured out how to survive Earth's attempts to kill us, we got bored. So we started looking for new ways to challenge ourselves. Bored? Several aliens said at once. Sure. Once you know how to survive a blizzard, climbing a mountain. In a blizzard becomes a sport. Once you can handle dangerous animals, you start wrestling them for fun. Once you master survival skills, you start competing to see who can survive in the most extreme conditions. Dr. Carter pulled up some information on her tablet. Human recreational activities include jumping out of aircraft at high altitude, diving to crushing depths in the ocean, climbing vertical rock faces without safety equipment, and racing vehicles at speeds that would be fatal in an accident. For entertainment, Ambassador Velinari said weakly. Exactly, Jake said enthusiastically. We turn survival into entertainment, and entertainment into training, and training into art. But what about combat? Vexstar asked. How does this relate to fighting? Jake's expression became more serious. Every human learns to fight because we have to. Not against other humans, against everything else. We fight disease with medicine, natural disasters with engineering, predators with tools and tactics. He gestured around the arena. By the time a human reaches military age, they've already spent their entire life learning how to overcome threats that are bigger, stronger, faster, or more numerous than they are. And then we train them even more, Captain Hayes added. Military training takes someone who's already spent 20 years learning to survive and teaches them how to fight intelligently. But you are still physically inferior, Dr. Zefti pointed out. Your strength, speed, and durability are well below galactic averages. True, Jake agreed. But here's what your analysis missed. We don't fight with our bodies. We fight with our minds. He turned to face Vexstar directly. You're stronger than me, faster than me, tougher than me, and you have natural weapons I can't match. In a straightforward test of physical abilities, you win every time. Then how did you defeat me? Vexstar asked. Because I didn't fight you. Fight. I fought my fight, Jake explained. Humans learned a long time ago that we can't overpower most threats, so we have to outthink them. Every move you made, I studied. Every attack pattern, every habit, every strength and weakness. Then I used that information to fight you in a way that minimized your advantages and maximized mine. The watching aliens were beginning to understand. The human hadn't won through superior physical ability. He had won through superior tactics and adaptation. This is why you seemed so calm, Velinari realized. You were not afraid because you were learning. Exactly. Fear makes you stupid, and stupid gets you killed. Better to stay calm, observe, adapt, and respond. Vexstar straightened up, some of his strength returning. I have fought hundreds of opponents. None of them fought like you. That's because none of them were human, Jake said simply. We've had to develop our own way of fighting, because our way is the only way we survive. The Krolix warrior was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a respect that had not been there before. I understand now why your species was invited to this exchange. You have much to teach. And we have a lot to learn. Jake replied, Your enhancement techniques are fascinating. The way you've modified your biology for combat is incredible. You would be interested in learning our methods? Vexstar asked, surprised. Absolutely. Though I should warn you, if you teach us how to enhance ourselves the way you have, the results might be a little scary. Several aliens shuddered at the thought. Humans who were already this dangerous in their natural state, enhanced with alien biotechnology, would be terrifying. Perhaps, Dr. Zefti suggested nervously, we should start with cultural exchange before moving to military enhancement. Jake laughed. Probably a good idea. Don't want to get ahead of ourselves. As the various species representatives began to disperse, many of them casting respectful but wary glances at Jake, Ambassador Velinari approached one final time. Lieutenant Morrison, I must ask, how typical are you among human warriors? Jake considered this seriously. I'm pretty good, but I'm not exceptional. There are human fighters who would make this look like a children's game. The implications of this statement hung in the air like a physical weight. Captain Hayes stepped forward. What Jake is trying to say is that humanity is honored to be part of this exchange program. We look forward to learning from all of you and sharing what we can offer. And what you offer, Extar said quietly, is the knowledge of how to turn a death world into a home and warfare into daily exercise. Pretty much, Jake said with a grin. Plus, I promise to show you some of our warm-up exercises tomorrow. Should be fun. As the aliens filed out of the arena, their minds reeling with new understanding about humanity's place in the galaxy, one thought was becoming clear to all of them. The galaxy had just encountered something unprecedented, a species that had not only survived on a world that actively tried to kill them, but had thrived so completely that they now considered mortal combat to be recreational training. And they had just announced themselves to the universe by treating a sacred duel to the death as a friendly sparring match. The universe was about to become a much more interesting place.